Welcome to Yell, Fight, Sooie, college football from three friendly-ish rivals.
And welcome back to Yell, Fight, Sooie. For two of us, it's rivalry week. For one of us, we're playing Texas Tech. Yes, take that as the dig. It is intended to be. First off, Scotty Mack is here. Scott, first of all, how you doing? Arkansas got the win last Saturday. Admittedly, not the win you thought you'd get. How you feeling?
No, Arkansas outscored Missouri State 38-10 through the last three quarters. So I'm not sure I thought Arkansas was great. The first, I know there's some people who want to talk about this first 15 minutes where Missouri State scored a bunch of points and thought they were going to win for a while. I chalk that up to Bobby Petrino being back in Fayetteville on the sidelines, and players just, it's natural to be in a state of shock for 15 minutes. It's okay. It's no big deal. We won the game.
I think that's fair.
I had no idea Denial was a county in Arkansas.
And that is Andy Tomchesin, our resident Aggie expert who, Andy, they had Miami. No one thought it would be a blowout. They won the game. I ended up fighting for the Aggie quarterback on Twitter because I don't think he played all that poorly. I think the Miami quarterback makes a lot of open throws. But, overall, how did you feel coming out of that game?
I think the whole Max Johnson backing up a little bit. If your quarterback doesn't throw for nearly 400 yards, it's a bad game. You saw that right with Quinn Ewers in his debut this year. It was only for 265. Oh, well, that's a bad game. Max Johnson did fine. The O-line still has a ways to go, but we stepped up against a level of opponents and beat off the hangover of dropping that ridiculous game to App State that I
beat off.
But all in all, I was pleased, more pleased after the rewatch than I was watching it, because I think I was watching the game with a certain amount of something bad's about to happen throughout the entire game, and it never really did.
Yeah, Scott, I know we were both kind of checking in on it too, and it did feel like Miami had lots of opportunities where they would miss a wide open guy in the flat. Like, it just seemed kind of weird. I don't know, it was like a weird game.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. And I kind of also got to question A&M fans that are being hard about Max Johnson. Look, he's your second quarterback. You've already been through one guy that you didn't like. Now you've got another opportunity who's actually giving you wins. So
I can answer that easily for you.
Miami handed you guys some things. That's obvious. However, a win is a win, and it's early in the season, and it's college football. But players don't have the practice time to be as perfect and spot on as they do.
But I can 100% answer the question about why we're hard on Max Johnson now, beyond the fact that his name is Max Johnson, which is just hilarious if you're in the right mindset.
There's beat off earlier in the show.
Exactly. There's a 5-star freshman sitting on the bench, and of course, quarterback on the bench is always much better than the quarterback the coach chose to play. Always.
Well, we're going to have a debate on this show. What's the better sporting moment? Hating your bullpen or hating whatever quarterback happens to be on the field at that moment? That's for another time. Scott, the other thing we're not going to ask you about is, the Cardinals not scoring a run for like 57 innings, but we're not going to get there. But Scott, we do have something interesting that I think has happened this football season before we dive into the matchup that we're going to talk about the rest of the show, which is you guys. And yeah, I did take a dig at Tech by not calling them a rival. Sorry.
But to be clear, that's Texas Tech. For all of you other schools with a Tech university, he's not talking.
They're also not our rival, though, by the way. Those ones, they share that in common. But no, Scott, one of the things I wanted to bring up with you and then Andy is I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, we've had an inordinate amount of football coaches hired before conference plays. Fired before conference plays even started. Herm Edwards, we saw on Twitter last night, had to take he flew coach after they couldn't even get him home. What's going on with that?
Herm got fired before he jogged all the way off the field. And I remember I was in Arkansas at the game when Brett Bielema was met in the end zone and told in the walkway before he went to address the players that you're done here. But that was the last game of the season. Herm, who anybody that's paid 2 minutes of attention to football knows that Herm Edwards is kind of a fiery guy, just jogging off the field where he's like, hey, come here, I want you to meet somebody. This is a school president. I'm your AD. Right. You're fired. That's what happened. And then dude flew coach home on Monday. Are you kidding me? Man, you want to talk about getting kicked out of town? Scott Frost is probably happy that at least they let him leave with some grace.
There are stories all around about coaches getting tarmacked. Mark Johnson at Texas A&M, famously by Bill Byrne, lost a series, got off the plane, and Bill Byrne's waiting there to give him his papers to let him go. Different sport, but on the field firing, that's a new level. So, good luck, Arizona State, on hiring that next coach.
A powerhouse that you've been year after year, these, phenomenal 3-9 and 4-8 seasons that they've been able to somehow, scrounge together in the very difficult Pac-12. And
Hey, Arizona State is number one in recruiting blonde-haired, blue-eyed women. So I don't know what else they bother with, and I don't think anybody cares.
Those are the real Sun Devils. Those are the real Sun Devils.
And I tell you, the funny thing about it's not like Herm Edwards is a bad football coach. He had, but in having his successful NFL pedigree, I don't know, you just can't recruit to Arizona, I guess. But
he's so fiery too, Jim. He usually wears out his welcome about this time.
That's true. I mean, you're true. He doesn't have any long stints at any one spot. He's just got a bunch of spots.
The other piece with Herm is that he's an NFL coach. He took the job. His eyes were open. He knew he was getting into, but there is always that difference between year-round recruiting and being an NFL head coach where you get to focus on the game and your front office puts together your team for you. It's a lot. And I think Herm Edwards was very vocal at the very beginning of, I'm not going to spend my entire year recruiting. And that's just not real in college football in 2022.
Yeah. Well, that might be a good topic for another day when one of us has a bye, because remember, when Jimmy Johnson was hired with the Cowboys, the story was, you can't coach, you can't go from college to the pro and be successful. Now I actually wonder if it is the opposite. Can you actually go from pros to college and be successful? And we can.
I think if there is a gap, it's even going to get wider, because it's not just recruiting high school kids anymore. It's recruiting your own roster every year, with the transfer portal being what it is, with NIL being what it is. You have to keep your eye on players who might be available on other teams. You have to know if they're able to. I mean, in the SEC right now, if I pull a player from Alabama, there's just a lot going on. It is a full-time job, and you see big programs like Texas and Arkansas and A&M have staffs that do nothing but track these guys and track all other teams that they might come in contact with.
Well, and like I said, that might be a fun conversation for another time, but it's time to dive into what our matchup of the week is. Arkansas and A&M in Jerry World. And I want to, you guys, first of all, know me well enough to know that that I'm not necessarily normally a kind of hot take, trolly, try to be rude kind of guy, right? I'm not a big smack talker.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You both acknowledge this? Andy, you acknowledge?
I agree, unless you're provoked.
Generally, yes, correct. If
Evil Jim is taking over, so I'm going to start over.
Yeah.
This week's matchup features a team with a 37-76 lifetime record against the Texas Longhorns, versus a team with a 23-56 all-time record against the University of Texas. It is Aggie Arkansas week. I'm waiting for Andy to point some arbitrary time that the record should start, because that's usually the go-to response to that joke. Arkansas is number 10, A&M 23. Obviously, great matchup, SEC matchup. Hopefully, like Andy said a few weeks ago, the last time we have this on a neutral field. Andy, A&M is ranked 23. We'll let you go first. Going into the game, this obviously can Miami did a lot for how people feel about the A&M season. Winning this game can really erase App State, I think. Overall, what makes you feel good about the Aggies right now?
Well, I don't think anything erases App State, but if you beat a top 15 Miami and then you follow that up with beating a top 10 Arkansas back-to-back weeks, it makes that a little bit easier to swallow. So we're all rooting for App State to make the playoffs at this point, because that's really the only thing that will justify that. Looking into it, I think A&M has managed to stay very vanilla, and that has cost them some style points. Certainly it cost them a win against App State. But they haven't shown a lot. And I don't think that football teams do as much of we're going to keep this back for our first big opponent or first conference opponent. I don't think, especially Jimbo Fisher and his staff, do a lot of that. But I also don't think, as we've talked about in the past, there was just a whole hell of a lot of scheming going on against Sam Houston or App State or even Miami to a certain extent. Arkansas is a different beast. It is a step up in competition for us. It is a step up in talent that we're going to be facing. It is a step up in defensive talent, especially. And then on the offensive side, KJ Jefferson is just a beast. And so, there was some thought, well, you're going to lose your big wide receiver in Burks, and that's going to slow down the passing game. Maybe it did slow down the passing game, but it doesn't matter because they run at like 7 yards a clip every time they touch the ball. So it's going to be a big challenge for us. Our strength on the defense is in the secondary and on the defensive line. So if we can get through their big guys and make KJ Jefferson's life difficult and concentrate on the run, I think we've got a good chance. But it's going to be I think it's going to be a really close game either way.
I think it's going to be a dogfight. Scott, let's get to you like what Andy did, broad strokes, before we kind of get into some of the why you think you'll win, why you think you'll lose. But just broad strokes, how you feeling about the matchup? Arkansas, I think because they were able to rebound and end up winning comfortably against Central, whatever state it was, you guys,
Missouri
State Bears, who
right.
arguably could win, are probably one of the top 4 teams.
Well, it's a lot of coaches' kids in there, Andy. I don't know if you knew that.
You remember what we said in the very first episode about how we're going to justify every opponent that we play?
A lot of coaches' kids, fifth-year seniors
too, buddy. When you're down by 10 to them in the fourth quarter, you're damn sure going to boost them up.
Yeah,
great team.
Hey, App State to the play.
So what do you think it's got about the matchup?
So the first thing I'm thinking is I'm glad I'm getting like an old Jello ring and stuff like that, and some old like tapioca pudding, some old food, since apparently we're basing things off of history with the way you threw those records out against Texas.
They keep the records for a reason. We don't get to say we were 1-1 in wars if we just count Iraq and Afghanistan. Okay,
yes,
we get to count the Revolutionary War.
MAGA folks only count the ones we win.
Yeah, well, let me tell you. First of all, I think Arkansas is going to do great this week because I thought it, and so therefore, if I think it, it becomes true, as we've learned over the course of the last week. But no, I think Andy touched on a lot of the really good broad strokes. For me, from Arkansas comes into this healthier than we've been since the end of the first game of the year. You get Miles Slusher back at safety to be able to strengthen up the defense. And look, the pass defense is the worst in the nation. Arkansas is. Thankfully, A&M's had a little bit of quarterback problems up till now, so maybe they're trying to figure it out while we're trying to figure it out, and it kind of evens each other out. Andy also talking about the beast that is KJ Jefferson. That's absolutely true. But that the A&M defense is stout, and so Arkansas does want to be able to move the ball. They do want to play a bit of bully ball. But A&M has a really good up front, a group of guys up front. They also have a good offensive line. They kind of want to do the same thing here with us a little bit. I think it's going to be a typical A&M Arkansas matchup. Big slugs being thrown at each other.
Large humans, yeah.
Large humans. I also, Andy's talking about that keep. They don't show everything in their playbook early in the season. I think Arkansas has been holding back a package that includes using the freakish speed of Malik Hornsby, our backup quarterback. I think you're going to see Malik Hornsby more in this game. I do think.
Would you say that Hornsby's going to have range?
I do. I really do. And I worry about Mandel and rain coming down on us or anything like that. It's also possible.
We are so old.
Bruce.
Yeah. And hopefully there won't be a little old lady standing in line waiting for a welfare dime.
Well, that's just the way it is, Scott.
Says,
it's just
some things will never change.
Yeah.
Don't you believe it?
Yeah.
No, but that's where I think the game's going, and I had no idea that we were going to quote Bruce Hornsby in this, but that's kind of awesome.
You don't quote Bruce Hornsby in the range every day in your normal life? What's wrong with you?
I think it. Remember, got to follow along with me, Andy. We're living in a new world now. If I think it, it becomes true.
Oh, yeah. I thought about before we lose half of our steadily growing viewership, but still.
But not very large.
But not very large yet. One of the things that I do like, and full disclosure to our fans out there, that we have conversations about how to improve the show from week to week. And one of the things that I think we do a really good job of is I think being relatively even keeled about the strengths and weaknesses of our teams, but also the other teams on the show. And I wanted to kind of hear from Scott first. Give me a reason why A&M wins the game. Give me a reason why Arkansas wins the game.
I think so. A&M will win the game based on their running attack. If their offensive line can create holes against Arkansas and they can methodically move the ball, control the ball, and keep their defense off the field. Arkansas wants to go fast. They want their offense to go really fast. And if A&M can keep that offense on the sidelines, force some 3 and outs, and then hold on to the ball, they can wear out the Arkansas defense. Wear them out with a run, and then take your shots where you can with the secondary that is a bit depleted and that is kind of young. The vulnerabilities are there. Max Johnson is just going to have to hit his targets. I know a lot of people think that Max Johnson's scrambling ability will be the difference in this game. I don't think it will be. I'm sure I'll think he'll pick up a couple of first downs, but I really think it's the overall rushing attack of A&M, and then defensively, A&M just has to flood the box, man up, and make KJ Jefferson make throws to new receivers. That's what I would do if I'm the A&M coach. And you do have to understand you're going to have to withstand a bit of a rushing attack from Arkansas. But if you get a push against the offensive line with Arkansas and get into that backfield and disrupt things and get them out of timing.
Okay, Andy, what about Arkansas? Give me one reason why Arkansas wins on Saturday.
Because DJ Durkin is our offensive coordinator, and when he was defensive coordinator, and because when he was the defensive coordinator at Ole Miss last year, he gave up 609 million yards to the Arkansas offense. So different team that he's playing with and stuff, but Durkin is getting a little bit of fire right now. Not all fair, but a little bit, because he is running a lot of 3-man fronts. And the strength of our roster is the defensive linemen that we have been recruiting year after year after year. And so you're effectively taking one of them off the field to do this bend, don't break thing, which has been effective. We've only allowed 2 touchdowns off drives, one touchdown off a drive the entire season so far. So 3 games. That includes Miami, which was a good offensive team coming in, held them to 3 field goals.
Yeah.
So he's been effective. We have the talent there. But if he continues to stick in a 3-man front against a team that is really, really good at running the ball, like Arkansas can be, that's a problem for me. So that would give Arkansas the win in my mind if Durkin isn't able to adjust and play to the strengths of his talent.
Can I add to that?
Go ahead. Yeah.
So if A&M's coming out there with a 3-man front, you can't get your linebackers and your safeties to take shots, obviously, and get up and fill those gaps. That's really good if you're dealing with a team that's just speed rushes to the outside or a quarterback busting up the middle, but you have more to worry about with the Arkansas rushing attack. To Andy's point, I do think, 3-man front would cause A&M trouble. But there is a way around it if your guys have
good enough linebackers.
Yeah, if we had more than 1.5 good linebackers, I would agree with you, but we don't, which is why it's so weird that we're doing this.
Understood. I agree. I agree with you. Maybe it's all a ruse. Maybe it's all.
It sounds like it's a guy who cares more about scheme and less about the players he has to fit said scheme, which is
I think it's also just a recognition that our linebacking core is weak, and so you're doing some things to get more safeties on the field, because we have a lot of really good safeties, as witnessed by the fact that 2 of them got lost to targeting penalties in the first half last week, and we still had really good safety play throughout the rest of the game against Miami. So that's a strength, but Durkin's got to adjust to the opponent that he's about to face, because it's not like anything we've seen yet.
I do think, as we kind of wrap up this game, I think Scott's overall premise is correct. Like, if A&M can control the ball, if they keep Arkansas's offense off the field, and I think it's a little bit what UTSA tried to do against Texas last week, except that the minute you don't, and that's your game plan, I think then the game potentially gets away from you.
Control. Yeah, we need to control time of possession. We need to control the ball, which is things Jimbo Fisher is typically good at offensively, but we also have to get points. It does you no good to go 80 yards and miss a field goal and then, okay, great. That's not going to work against this team. I would say anybody who's a betting person, I would bet the under, because the over is really ridiculously high, considering one of the teams in this game has scored 31, 14, and 17 in 3 weeks. There's no way we're scoring 40 points in some of the projections I've seen. So the over-under being what it is, bet the under.
I wanted to bring up something a little bit off topic, and I kind of just want to touch on it now and bring on again, file it away for later. And you guys know I'm teaching a broadcasting class, and I've got 2 kids who are just nailing it with their sports shows. one an Aggie, one a Longhorn. I thought about inviting them on one time and having them be like the junior, me and Andy. But one of them said that after watching Game Day in App State, how electric it was, how fired up it was, that ESPN should really be going for more of those types of environments than just always sticking to the same blue bloods, to whom it's now become sort of tired and not nearly as energetic. I remember South Dakota a couple of years ago, the entire town turned out for Game Day. Scott, overall, I mean, you're in the business. What are your thoughts on just that? And then Andy, will go to you.
Well, let me tell you, as an Arkansas team who's not too far removed from some 2-10 seasons, boy, when Game Day shows up, it's still a really big deal.
Hey, we had it for the first time like 15 years, so yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Everybody was like, "Wait, Lee Corso for real? That's real. That's not just an inflatable. That's really him."
Their weekend at Birmingham, but yes, that's.
I think it's. I think it's absolutely great. I think that's one of the reasons also for those in the Southeastern Conference that get the SEC network. Jim, it's coming soon. Deal with it.
I'm into it. I watched it last week at y'all's suggestion. I'm into it.
Yeah, I think SEC Nation actually does a better job than College Game Day because of that. Because it's more of the small venue. They show up at Vanderbilt, right? Vanderbilt's glad to have them there. I think it's the same thing with the Game Day experience. When they show up at the Army Navy game, it's a huge deal. Schools, it's a huge environment because it's bringing in celebrities to your town. This is the same thing like Bye Bye Birdie and all those movies where the big celebrity comes into the small town. It's a huge deal. You can capture that. That's honestly no jokes here. That's actually one of the coolest things about America is that we have all these small towns throughout. And when a celebrity shows up, people just roll out the red carpet and treat them like.
Would you say it's a real neat deal?
Real neat deal.
Did Bye Bye Birdie work out for any character in that story?
I'm about to say, Andy, you have to follow up a Bruce Hornsby reference and a Bye Bye Birdie reference. Your thoughts on that?
No, it's similar to the complaints we have on our baseball show. I wish ESPN would recognize that there are 131 or 135, however many are playing D1 football. There's a whole nother 100 set of FCS teams that are worthy of their attention. Yes, you go to where the big game is, and I understand why they, announce a week at a time to make sure they're going to maximize the excitement level. So if you've got a huge game between, I'll just pick something, Ohio State, Notre Dame, that's a big deal. And if there's no better game on the schedule, great. But when you take advantage of going to a North Dakota State, going to an App State, going to Lubbock for a Texas Tech game, let's say that happened. Beyond the penicillin shots you would need, because I can do that too. It brings more people into being college football fans and not just fans of their own team or own conference. Because Game Day, for all of its flaws, and I know a lot of people who might watch this are they've gotten really political over the years, and I don't watch them anymore. There is still something, especially by that first weekend of the year, waking up, I guess now at 8:00 in the morning and hearing that stupid song, which everybody ostensibly hates.
Oh yeah.
But I like hearing it for the first time. The song is something that I check out every season at the beginning, just to make sure A&M hasn't lost its place in the lyrics, because that's a thing. Used to count that and how many seconds we got of footage versus Texas and Oklahoma and a few other schools. And then I immediately switched to SEC Nation because I know that crew is going to be sitting at Ohio State or at Notre Dame or at Michigan, and it's the same schools they go to every year. So I'd love to see them start mixing it up on a regular basis. And maybe if you've got 13 weeks of a college football season, you earmark 5 of those for we're going to go to this school regardless of what's going on.
Yeah.
Because I think to your point, and you talked about our baseball shows, like, much like minor league baseball, every single college has its own traditions that are cool and you want to learn about them. They have their own thing. And, I understand. I think especially when we think about the danger we are of those teams starting to lose relevance as we become a much more kind of big glump of college football.
I think there's a business aspect to that too for ESPN. If we're about to go to a 12-team playoff, which we are, you're going to see teams like App State or somebody representing the Sun Belt have a really good shot of being in those playoffs. Yeah. So if you don't want to have to fall back on we have to have Notre Dame in the playoffs or else nobody will watch. One way to do that is to start driving interest in those teams earlier in the season and building them up the same way they do the Yankees and the Red Sox for every single game they play, which is arguably something that doesn't need to be hyped up. So a matchup between the Pirates and the Cubs at this time of the year, 100% would.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. I don't know how much having game day translates to actual viewers of the game or excitement at the game itself. I almost think the better made for television event is what we're talking about, putting on a school like App State, who maybe doesn't get the promotion.
I will say, having attended when Game Day and SEC Nation have been on campus at A&M, it doesn't necessarily affect attendance at a school like A&M, but what it does is bring a level of excitement prior to the game that starts that it basically raises the volume level, for lack of a better term. You're starting earlier. People are getting out on campus. They're seeing the vendors. They're tailgating longer. It makes a better atmosphere for later in that day.
And you think about how many stories that are still out there in college football that we haven't seen. I mean, Jim, when you and I got the pleasure of doing a late night tour around the campus of University of Wisconsin, it was a blast.
It wasn't a tour. We were doing breaking and entering. That's not the same as tour, but yes.
It is, according to the J6 defendants. It was just a tourist activity.
Yeah.
Nobody died.
We didn't get caught, so it was just a tour.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, there were so many interesting things just around there. And you take Wisconsin's a big program, but Game Day doesn't show up there every year. It's not in Ohio State. It's not in Michigan. So yeah, I think there's so many great stories to still be told, to still be able to set up and see on these college campuses. It doesn't even necessarily have to be just these smaller schools, but just some alternate schools. Okay, Ohio State, we get it. We know what Game Day looks like from Ohio State. What does it look like from Indiana? What does it look like from Illinois? Even that.
And I get your point. We're not even having to go super small.
Exactly.
No.
Yep.
There are still Power 5 schools that don't ever get.
Why did the Northwestern students throw marshmallows? I want to know.
Jim, think about what a big deal it would be at Texas Tech if they could get them out there.
Well, they did it once in 2008, and the Longhorns lost the game by 3 games and didn't get to go to the national championship. So I'm okay with that not happening.
But Michael Crabtree saw that in his mind.
Yeah, he did. You know, Blake Gideon didn't see that in his mind. That was actually the lowest point in our marriage because Jessica didn't I had to stop her from celebrating to tell her. I went to bed fully dressed, you guys. But it's a good segue. Texas is playing Tech, and I could talk all the reasons why I think the Longhorns will win it. I think one, it looks like all the quarterbacks have just gotten healthier. All 4 of them practiced this week. I could talk about the game not being at night, which is a super big deal. As you know, Andy, in Lubbock at daytime and Lubbock at night's 2 different things. I do want to take some time, though, on this segment of talking about the Tech game to actually do a shout out to Jack Esparza, who is one of my favorite students. I have known him since he was a first grader. He is from a big Tech family. His parents went there. His brothers are there. And this is his freshman year as a member of the Texas Tech football team. So even though it is sacrilegious in the colors I'm wearing, for Jack, Reckham Tech, man, I'm so proud of you, and I hope you have just a great season. You're one of the best guys I know, and I think good things happen to those people. So it's pretty awesome to see. Any closing thoughts from you guys before we head out?
Well, I just want I'm looking forward to the weekend. I'm looking forward to not texting Andy between the hours of 5:55 p.m. until the game, about 5-10 minutes after the game is over. Not looking at my phone during that time either. Being
Is there a bet this year? That's the question everybody wants to know. Is there a bet?
There's not a bet at this time.
No.
There's not, there
may be one before game time, but there's
there's still plenty of, because I still have,
if that package is there, that means you still haven't fulfilled your part of the bet
from last year's win. Maybe I went and got more cock. You never know, because you can do that. You can get more cock. There's more cock to be had.
I had no idea they had cock in Arkansas up there.
But that's some incredible stuff. And this yell leader cleans up so nicely. He looks amazing in this picture. And I just think that's really cool that you shared that with me, because I didn't know beforehand.
Happy to help.
That those guys look like this. So, hey, my one question to Andy, though, coming into tonight was, what embarrassing thing do you think the yell leaders will do at midnight tonight?
Bad jokes again, because that's what we do, but that's also what we've been doing for 100 years. So the fact that people are just now irritated about it is more of a symptom of losing to App State than anything else.
And relevant again in their social media. I mean, some traditions that we were doing 100 years ago.
Where we misstepped. They have been telling stupid off-color jokes for as long as I can remember. But the misstep was somebody complained, and then A&M started trying to remove the video from websites. And that just makes you look guilty.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you're guilty or not, it just makes you look bad. It's just stupid PR move on our part.
Yeah.
But it's a dumb tradition. Anybody who went to A&M will tell you it's a dumb tradition, but it's a tradition and we enjoy doing it. And it's not hurting anybody.
It doesn't hurt anybody. Again, I found myself defending the Yell leaders on Twitter. God, this show is making me do really weird, crazy things. Guys, great episode. We're very excited to be back to find out how this all shakes out for next week. Again, good luck to Jack Esparza. I'm James Christopher Hook'em Horns. Andy Tom Chesson.
Hey, Jack Esparza, avoid the clap. That's Jimmy Dugan advice, and it's good.
I'm so glad. Now I can't forward this to his parents to watch. And Scott McIntyre.
Blue damn pig.
Y'all Fight Sooie is part of the Let's Get To network. Y'all Fight Sooie is produced by Twitchy Dolphin Media.